In the final 2 years of the American Revolution, Rutherford County played a major part in the defeat of British forces in the 13 American colonies. Loyalist forces under the command of Major Patrick Ferguson made their way into Rutherford County, pursued by over-the-mountain men from eastern Tennessee over what we now know as the Over-the-Mountain Victory Trail. In 1780, both armies camped here at Fergusons Ridge, right outside of Gilberttown. This is the only documented time that Patriot and Loyalist forces used the same area for encampment during the Revolutionary War. Both armies met at Cane Creek in a small skirmish that was a prelude to the Battle of Kings Mountain.
On September the 12th, 1780, Charles McDowell ambushed part of Ferguson's army at what we know of today as Cane Creek, but they were driven off. Their forces simply were not significant enough to make much of an effort or an impact on the British troops. They were driven off and fled to Sycamore Shoals, which is now Elizabethton, Tennessee, to await basically reinforcements from the Over-Mountain men. And that may have been the spurring element that indeed pulled more forces in, Patriot forces together, kind of as a rallying call to pull together to kind of hunt down Ferguson and his troops.
The militia troops returned a few weeks later and caught Ferguson's army encamped at Kings Mountain.
On the morning of October the 7th, 1780, the Patriot forces were successful in crossing the flooded Broad River down next to Kings Mountain. Later that day at 3 p.m., one of the most significant occurrences of the Revolutionary War happened when the Patriot forces did indeed link up with the forces under the command of Major Ferguson. 120 British soldiers were killed on that day, as well as Patrick Ferguson. There were about 30 casualties here of Patriot forces. That event, that war, really was the turning point of the Revolutionary War here in the South, turning the tide in favor of the Patriot Army. From that point on, the successes of the Patriot Army were able to bring about ultimate victory for the American nation.
After the battle, many of the wounded were brought back to Gilberttown, where a field hospital was set up. Also returning were 30 Loyalist prisoners.
As many of these men were going back to their home communities, 30 of the Tories were tried, convicted, and brought to Biggerstaff's Field here in northern Rutherford County, where there was a mass hanging. All 30 of those men were to be hung. 9 of them were indeed hung here in Rutherfordton, with one of those being Ambrose Mills, a very determined Loyalist of the Crown.
The final years of the American Revolution quickly drew to a close, with Lord Cornwallis surrendering to General George Washington at Yorktown, Virginia in 1781. Thanks to the determination of Patriot forces who came through Rutherford County and the significant events that were played out here in this area, a new nation was born.